I skipped every comfort, every dream, and every moment of joy to see her smile, but when I finally gave her everything I had, she walked away saying it was never enough. I'm writing this at 3 a.m. in a motel room that smells like cigarettes and broken dreams. My wedding ring sits on the nightstand next to me, and I can't stop staring at it. 3 hours ago, I was a husband and father. Now I'm just another guy who weigh everything good in his for 5 minutes of stupidity. Let me be clear about something right from the start. This isn't a story about how my wife didn't understand me or how our marriage was already over. This isn't about how the other woman seduced me or how I was and didn't know what I was doing. I was stone cold sober. My wife Sarah loved me completely, my kids adored their dad, and I destroyed all of it because I'm selfish and weak. It started 6 months ago at my buddy Jake's birthday party. Sarah couldn't come because our youngest, Emma, had a fever. She me goodbye and told me to have fun, to finally relax for once. We've been working so hard lately, she said, straightening my collar the way she always did. Deserve this, that's the thing that's eating me alive right now. She was right, I had been working 60-hour weeks for 2 years straight, skipping lunches, missing family dinners. Also we could finally buy that house she'd been dreaming about since we got married. Every overtime shift, every weekend at the office, every missed bedtime story was supposed to be for her. For them. At the party I met Lisa. She was Jake's coworker, recently divorced, and she laughed at all my jokes. When's the last time someone laughed at my jokes? I couldn't remember. Sarah was always so tired lately, juggling the kids and her part-time job while I worked too. We barely talked anymore except about bills and schedules and whose turn it was to do the dishes. Lisa and I started talking about work, then everything. She listened, really listened, not the distracted listening Sarah did while she was mentally planning the next day's lunches or worrying about Emma's cough. Lisa looked at me like I was interesting, like I mattered as more than just a provider and problem solver. Wife is lucky, she said around midnight, and the way she said it made my chest tight. A man who works that hard for his family. I should have gone home right then, should have my sleeping wife and remembered why I was working so hard in the first place. Instead I stayed and talked until 2 a.m. I told Lisa things I hadn't told anyone, about how invisible I felt at home, how I couldn't remember the last time Sarah and I had a real conversation, how I was terrified I was failing as a husband-father despite giving everything I had. Or not failing, Lisa said, touching my arm. We exchanged numbers, just to talk I told, just someone who understood. The text started innocent. Work stuff jocus, but then Lisa would send me good morning messages that made me smile in a way I'd forgotten I could. She'd ask how my day was and actually wait for an answer. When I complained about being exhausted, she didn't tell me to drink more coffee or power through it like Sarah did. She told me I was doing amazing things for people I loved, and that I deserved to feel appreciated. For the first time in years, someone was making me feel like I mattered as a person, not just a paycheck. Sarah noticed I was happier. Seemed different lately, she said one morning, smiling as she poured my coffee. More like old self. The guilt should have stopped me right there. But it didn't. Lisa and I started meeting for coffee, then lunch. Always somewhere across town where no one would see us. We were just friends, I told. We weren't doing anything wrong, but I was lying to Sarah about where I was going, deleting text messages, and thinking about Lisa during family dinners. The day everything fell apart was Emma's 7th birthday. We'd planned this elaborate princess party in our backyard. Sarah had been preparing for weeks, making decorations by hand because we couldn't afford the fancy store, bought ones. She'd stayed until midnight the night before, frosting a castle cake that looked like something from a magazine. Emma was so happy. She ran around in her princess dress, showing off to her friends, and kept hugging Sarah and saying, "This is the best birthday ever, mommy." My wife was glowing. After months of stress about money and exhaustion from juggling everything, she looked genuinely happy. I should have been present, should have been soaking every second of my daughter's joy. Instead, I was checking my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for Lisa to text me back. Around 2 p.m., while Sarah was cleaning cake and the kids were playing, my phone buzzed. Lisa was having a crisis at work and needed to talk. Could I meet her for coffee? It would just be an hour. I looked at Sarah, covered in frosting and glitter, laughing as she watched Emma and her friends play. I looked at my son Mike, only 4 years old, trying to pop balloons with a plastic fork. This was my family. This was supposed to be our day. I need to run out for a work thing, I told Sarah. The lie came so easily it scared me. Sarah's smile faltered for just a second. On Emma's birthday, can it wait? It'll be quick. 1 hour tops, she nodded, but I saw the disappointment in her eyes. Okay, we'll save some cake. That's the moment I fear most. Not what happened later, but that moment when I chose to leave my daughter's birthday party to comfort another woman. When I looked at my wife's understanding smile and used her trust against her. I met Lisa at our usual coffee shop. She'd been crying, her makeup smudged. Her boss had humiliated her in front of everyone, questioned her competence, made her feel. She needed someone to tell her she was valuable, that she mattered. I'm so glad came, she said, grabbing my hand. Always know how to make me feel better. We talked for 2 hours. I completely lost track of time, absorbed in being the person who could fix someone's problems instead of just creating more of them. When Lisa looked at me like I was her hero, I felt more important than I had in months. By the time I got home, the party was over. Emma was napping, exhausted from her big day. Sarah in the kitchen silently cleaning the aftermath of 27-year-olds hyped on sugar. How was the work thing? She asked without looking at me. Fine. Sorry I missed the end. Emma asked where Daddy went. I told her had to help people at work. Her voice was flat. She said she understood because Daddy always has to help people at work. The way Sarah said it made me realize Emma had been hearing that excuse her whole. How many times had I missed bedtime stories for work emergencies that could have waited? How many family dinners had I short to answer emails that weren't urgent? How many times had my 4-year-old son fallen asleep waiting for me to come home? I saved cake, Sarah said, sliding a plate across the counter. The castle she'd worked so was mostly destroyed, just a few towers left standing. I ate that cake in silence, and it tasted like shame. That night, after the kids were in bed, Sarah tried to talk to me about something, I don't even remember what, but I was distracted thinking about Lisa, about how sad she'd looked, wondering if she was okay. Sarah stopped mid-sentence. You're not here, she said quietly. What do you mean? I'm right here. No, we're not. Haven't been here for months, even when we're home, or somewhere else. I should have told her everything right then. Should have admitted I'd been emotionally cheating on her with someone who made me feel important. Should have asked for help, for forgiveness, for a chance to fix what I'd broken before it was too late. Instead, I got defensive. I've been working my tail off for this family. I'm trying to get us that house want. I never asked to be present. To be here. To be my husband and their father, not just someone who pays the bills. Well, someone has to pay the bills, Sarah. Someone has to be responsible. The in her eyes when I said that will haunt me forever. Like I just told her everything she did for our family didn't matter. All the nights she stayed with sick kids so I could sleep before work. All the family dinner she cooked that I ate while scrolling through emails. All the time she handled bedtime alone because I was too tired from providing for everyone. She went to bed without another word. I stayed downstairs texting Lisa, telling her about seeking comfort from the person who was destroying my marriage. She doesn't appreciate, Lisa wrote back. Give everything and get nothing in return. It felt so good to have someone validate my feelings that I ignored the voice in my head screaming that this was wrong. That Sarah appreciated me more than I deserved. That I was the one who'd stopped seeing all the ways she showed love because I was too busy chasing validation from someone else. The next 3 weeks were the beginning of the end. Sarah and I barely spoke. She stopped trying to connect with me, stopped asking about my day, stopped touching me when she walked by. I told she was being cold and distant, but really she was just protecting herself from someone who kept hurting her. Meanwhile, Lisa and I got closer. The conversations got more personal. The coffee dates lasted longer. She started calling me late at night when her ex-husband would text her something cruel, and I'd talk her through it, feeling needed and important. I'd met first. She said one night during one of those calls, I should have hung. Should have blocked her number and confessed everything to Sarah. Instead, I said, me too. 3 days later, Lisa asked me to come over to her apartment. She was having a panic about a court date with her ex, and she couldn't be alone. It was a Tuesday night. Sarah was at her book club, something she'd started doing once a month as her one escape from being a full-time mom and part-time everything else. I told I was just being a good friend. Just helping someone in crisis. Lisa answered the door in pajamas, her eyes red from crying. Her apartment was small and lonely, nothing like the warm, chaotic home Sarah had created for our family. We sat on her couch, and she leaned against me while I held her and told her everything would be okay. You're the only person who makes me feel safe, she whispered. That's when me. I could have stopped it, should have stopped it, but for 10 seconds I felt like I was someone's entire world instead of just someone's paycheck and problem solver. For 10 seconds I forgot about mortgages and sick kids and dirty dishes and work deadlines. I forgot about being tired and overlooked and taken for granted. For 10 seconds, I felt alive, then reality crashed back and I pulled away, heart pounding, Sarah's face flashing in my mind. I can't, I said. I'm married, I have kids. I know, Lisa said. I'm Sarah about so much. I left that night swearing it would never happen again. But the damage was done. I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. I'd betrayed my wife, my marriage, my family. Even if it lasted 10 seconds. The guilt was eating me alive, but instead of confessing I into work even harder. I started picking fights with Sarah over things, because part of me wanted her to be the bad guy. If she was cold or demanding or unappreciative, then maybe what I'd done wasn't so terrible. But she wasn't any of those things. She was just tired and lonely and married to a man who'd checked out of there together. Last Friday night, she tried on a babysitter, made reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date, bought a new dress. She wanted to talk about us, about fixing what was broken. She said over dinner, reaching for my hand. I miss being married to my best friend. I should have told her everything right then. Should have said I missed her too, that I'd made terrible mistakes, that I wanted to for our marriage. Instead, I was distracted because I had been texting me all day about another crisis with her ex. We're fine, Sarah, her being dramatic, the light went out of her eyes. Fine. Okay, we're fine. We rode home in silence. She never mentioned the babysitter money we'd or the dress she'd bought or the hope she'd had that maybe we could find our way back to each other. That was 3 nights ago. Tuesday, Sarah's book club night. Lisa called me crying again. Her ex was to take her to court over something petty and she was falling apart. Could I come over? Just for an hour. I went. Because I'm weak and selfish and I like being needed more than I like being faithful. This time when Lisa I didn't stop it. This time I hurt back. This time I betrayed my wife and my marriage and my children completely and utterly, in ways I can't take back and don't deserve to be forgiven for. When I got home, Sarah was waiting for me. How was book club? I asked, trying to sound normal. It was fine, she said quietly. Jake's wife was there. She mentioned seeing at that coffee shop across town last week, with someone. My turn to ice. She said looked really comfortable with her, like knew each other well. I could have lied, could have come with some explanation, but looking at my wife's face, seeing the devastation that was already there because she knew, I couldn't make it worse. Sarah, is there someone else? The question hung in the air like a waiting to. I had maybe 3 seconds to decide whether to confess everything or try to minimize it. 3 seconds to choose between honesty and self-preservation. Yes, the word came out as barely a whisper, but it might as well have been a gunshot. Sarah's face crumpled and the sound she made was unlike anything I'd ever heard. Not crying, not screaming, just pure anguish. How long? A few months. How far did it go? And that's when I realized there was no version of the truth that wouldn't destroy everything. No way to explain that would make it better. No words that could undo what I'd done. Tonight, I whispered. Sarah doubled over like I'd physically hit her. Then she was running to the bathroom, and I could hear her being sick. Actually physically sick from learning what her husband had done to their marriage. When she came out, her face was completely blank. Get out, Sarah, please, let me explain. Get out of my house. Now, the kids. Don't dare bring the kids right now. I packed a bag with shaking hands. As I was leaving I saw Emma's birthday photo on the refrigerator. All of us smiling, Sarah's arm around me, Emma beaming in her princess dress. 5 days ago we were a family. Now I'm here, in this motel room, and I can't stop thinking about everything I've lost. Not just Sarah, though losing her feels like losing half my soul. But Emma will grow knowing her daddy chose another woman over her mother. Mike will learn that the man he looks to is someone who breaks promises and destroys families. I keep thinking about that last conversation with Sarah, when she said I wasn't present even when I was home. She was right, I'd been gone long before I started seeing Lisa. I checked out of my marriage, stopped seeing my wife as a person with her own needs and dreams, stopped being grateful for everything she did to hold our family together while I worked too. I convinced I was sacrificing for them, but really I was just hiding from them. It was easier to stay late at work than come home and be a husband and father. Easier to lose in someone else's problems than face the ones in my own. Sarah tried to tell me she needed me to be present, to be her partner, to be engaged with our together. But I was so busy playing the martyr, working endless hours so I could feel important and necessary that I stopped hearing her. Then Lisa showed and made me feel like a hero instead of just another tired husband and father. And instead of fixing what was broken at home, I ran toward what felt good. I destroyed my family for someone who barely knew me. I weigh 13 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, and the love of the most incredible woman I've ever known, all for a few months of feeling appreciated by someone who had nothing to lose. Tomorrow I have to figure out how to tell my kids that daddy isn't coming home, how to explain to a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old that their family is broken because their father is broken. I keep staring at my wedding ring, remembering the day Sarah put it on my finger. How happy she looked, how sure we both were that we'd figured out forever. The worst part is, I still love her. I love her more than I ever loved Lisa, more than I've ever loved anyone. But love isn't enough when proven can't be trusted. Love isn't enough when shown that promises don't mean anything. I worked to try to give Sarah everything she wanted, but what she wanted was me. Present, engaged, faithful me, and I gave her everything except the one thing that mattered most. Now she's gonna have to explain to her friends and family what happened. She's gonna have to be a single mother, cause I couldn't figure out how to be a husband. She's gonna have to rebuild her entire, because I was too selfish and cowardly to fix our problems instead of running away from them. I could say I don't know how this happened, but I do. It happened because I stopped fighting for my marriage and started looking for an escape from it. It happened because I convinced I deserved something I wasn't getting at home instead of working to build what I wanted with the woman I married. It happened because I'm weak and selfish, and I thought I could have everything without losing anything. But can't cheat on someone who loves and expect to keep that love. Can't betray someone who trusts and expect to keep that trust. Can't destroy family and expect them to welcome back. The title of my story isn't about Sarah not appreciating my sacrifices. It's about me not appreciating hers. I skipped every comfort, every dream, and every moment of joy to chase something that felt better than I had, and when my wife needed everything I had to give, I'd already given it to someone else. It's been 2 weeks since Sarah kicked me out. 2 weeks of living in this motel room that's become my prison. 2 weeks of staring at my phone, wanting to call my kids but knowing I don't deserve to hear their voices yet. Lisa has been texting me constantly. She wants to see me, to talk about us, to plan some kind of future together. She doesn't understand that there is no us. There never was. She was just the weapon I used to destroy my own. I know this is complicated. She texted yesterday. But maybe this is the universe telling us we're meant to be together. I blocked her number after that. Not because I'm some changed man who's learned his lesson, but because seeing her messages makes me sick. Every text reminds me of what I owe for someone who thinks home wrecking is romantic. Sarah hired a lawyer. I found out when divorce papers were served to me at work, in front of my entire team. My boss pulled me aside afterward. Everything okay at home, David? Just some personal stuff I'm working through. But nothing was okay and I wasn't working through anything. I was drowning. The papers were brutal in their simplicity. Sarah wanted full custody of the kids, the house, half of everything we'd built together. She was asking for alimony, which she'd never needed before cause I'd always provided for everything. Now she'd have to rebuild her entire because of my choices. The worst part was a note from her lawyer about a restraining order if I tried to contact Sarah directly. She was so afraid of me, so disgusted by what I'd done, that she couldn't even trust me to have a conversation about our children. I drove to the house that night, just to sit outside and look at the windows. Emma's room still had her princess nightlight glowing. Mike's window had his superhero stickers stuck to the glass. This was the house I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford. The house where we were supposed to grow old together. Sarah's silhouette moved past the living room window, and for a second I thought about knocking on the door. Begging her to let me explain, to give me one more chance. Then I remembered that restraining order and realized I'd become the kind of man my wife was afraid of. I drove back to the motel and drank for the first time in my adult. Work became unbearable. Everyone knew. In a small town, news travels fast, and David Morrison cheated on his wife, was apparently the most interesting gossip in months. I could feel people staring at me in meetings, whispering in the break room. Jake stopped talking to me entirely after his wife told him she'd seen me with Lisa. My productivity tanked. I'd sit at my desk thinking about Emma asking where daddy went at her birthday party, or Mike waiting for me to come home and read him bedtime stories that I was never going to read again. I'd find staring at family photos on my desk until I couldn't breathe. My boss called me in on Friday. David, I need to be straight with. Performance has been concerning lately. I understand you're going through personal issues, but this is affecting work and the team morale. I know, I'm trying to get it together. I'm gonna recommend take some time off. Maybe consider counseling. Figure out what need to figure out, but do it on own time. So now I was unemployed too. The job I'd used to justify neglecting my family gone. The career I'd prioritized over bedtime stories and family dinners over. Everything I told I was working toward meaningless. I spent that weekend driving around town, seeing my old everywhere. The grocery store where Sarah and I used to shop together every Sunday. The kids running ahead to grab cereal boxes. The park where I'd taught Emma to ride her bike, where Mike had taken his first steps. The ice cream shop where we'd go after soccer games and school plays. All of it was still there, but I wasn't part of it anymore. I was just some guy driving past the used to have. Sunday morning I saw them at church. Sarah had taken the kids to the early service, probably hoping to avoid running into people who'd ask questions. Emma was wearing her favorite dress, the yellow one with flowers that she'd picked out for Easter. Mike was in his little button shirt, the one that made him feel grown. Sarah looked exhausted. Thinner than she'd been 2 weeks ago. Her sister was with her, probably helping with the kids. Being the support system I should have been, I watched from my car as they walked into the building where Sarah and I had gotten married 9 years ago. Where Emma had been baptized as a baby. Where Mike had participated in the children's Christmas play last year. And I'd missed it because of a work deadline that probably didn't matter to anyone. The urge to go in, to sit in the back pew and just be in the same room as my children, was overwhelming. But I knew I'd lost the right to share in their Sunday mornings. I'd lost the right to sit next to my wife during services and hold her hand during prayers. I drove to a bar instead and spent the morning drinking whiskey and watching strangers live their lives. That's when I got the call from Sarah's sister Michelle. Need to know what done to those kids, she said without any greeting. Her voice was cold, furious. I know I've them. No, don't know. Emma asked her mom yesterday why daddy doesn't love them anymore. A 7-year-old thinks her father abandoned her because she wasn't good enough. Mike keeps asking when her coming home, and Sarah has to lie and tell him soon because she doesn't know how to explain that daddy chose another woman over his family. Every word was it in my chest. Emma won't sleep in her own room because she has nightmares that everyone she loves is going to leave. Mike has started wetting the bed again because he's so anxious. Sarah cries herself to sleep every night when she thinks the kids can't hear. I want to see them. I want to explain. Explain what? That their father is a selfish piece of garbage who away his family for some random woman. That the man they look to is someone who lies and cheats and breaks promises. They're my children too. No, they're Sarah's children. Or just the man who helped create them and then decided they weren't worth staying faithful for. The line went dead. I sat in that bar until closing time, thinking about Emma's nightmares and Mike's anxiety and Sarah crying alone in the bed we used to share. I thought about all the nights I'd work late, telling I was providing for them, while they went to sleep without me. All the family dinners I'd missed, all the school events I'd skipped, all the bedtime stories I'd been too tired to read. I'd already been absent from their lives. The cheating was just the final proof that they'd never been my priority. The next week, I had my first appointment with a court-appointed mediator for the custody hearing. Sarah was there with her lawyer, looking like a stranger. She wouldn't make eye contact with me. When she had to speak, she addressed her lawyer, not me. My client is requesting supervised visitation only, Sarah's lawyer said. Given the circumstances and the impact on the children, we don't believe unsupervised time is in their best interest. Supervised visitation, like I was some kind of dangerous criminal who couldn't be trusted alone with my own kids. What circumstances? My lawyer asked. Mr. Morrison abandoned his family for another woman. The children are traumatized. They need stability and protection, not exposure to someone who has proven he can't be trusted to keep his commitments. The mediator looked at me. Mr. Morrison, do dispute these claims. What could I say? That I hadn't abandoned them, I just cheated on their mother. That they shouldn't be traumatized by learning their father was unfaithful. That I could be trusted with them even though I'd proven I couldn't be trusted with anything else. No, I said quietly. I don't dispute them. The mediator scheduled supervised visits for 2 hours every other Saturday at a family center downtown. 2 hours every other week, with a social worker taking notes about whether I was fit to spend time with my own children. As we left the building, I caught to Sarah in the parking lot. Sarah, please. She stopped walking but didn't turn around. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I can't undo what I've done. But they're my kids too. I love them. She turned around then, and the look on her face was something I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not just complete disgust. Love them when left Emma's birthday party to comfort another woman. Love them when lied to my face about work emergencies so could go see her. Love them when chose to betray their mother and destroy their family. I made mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting to pick milk or missing a phone call. Made choices. Deliberate, selfish choices. Every single day for months chose her over us. I want to make it right. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Make it right. Can't make this right, David. Can't uncheat on me. Can't give Emma back her sense of security. Can't give Mike back his trust in the people who are supposed to protect him. Can't give me back the 13 years I loving someone who was capable of this. What about counseling? What about trying to work through this? Work through this? I gave everything. My heart, my body, my trust, my future. I built my entire around loving and raising children. And it all away for someone barely knew because she made feel special for a few months. Tears were running down her face now, but her voice never wavered. I will never trust again. I will never believe another word say. I will never be able to look at without remembering that chose to me in the worst possible way. There is no coming back from this. She got in her car and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with the truth I'd been trying to avoid. This wasn't something I could fix. This wasn't a rough patch we could work through. This was the end, and it was entirely my fault. My first supervised visit was that Saturday. I sat in a sterile room at the family center, waiting for my children like a stranger. When they walked in with the social worker, Emma ran to me immediately. Daddy, I missed so much. Are coming home now. I held her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling her little arms around my neck. For a second it felt like everything might be okay. Not yet, sweetheart. But I'm here now. Mike was more cautious. He hung back, watching me like he wasn't sure if I was safe to approach. My 4-year-old son was afraid of me. Hey buddy, I said, kneeling down to his level. I missed. Mommy said had to go away for work, he said quietly. When will work be done? The social worker was watching everything, taking notes. I couldn't tell him the truth. That work wasn't the problem. That daddy had made choices that broke their family apart. That I might never come home because I'd proven I didn't deserve to. I don't know yet, buddy. But I love so much. We played with puzzles and coloring books for 2 hours while a stranger evaluated whether I was fit to be their father. Emma chattered about school and friends and the new bedtime stories Mommy had been reading. Mike slowly warmed, showing me his drawings and asking if I remembered the superhero names he'd made. When the visit was over, Emma clung to me. I don't want to go, Daddy. I want to come home. I know, baby. I want that too, but I was lying again. Because wanting something and deserving it are different things, and I'd lost the right to want it with them. That night I called my own father for the first time in months. Dad, I messed everything. What happened, son? So I told him. About the cheating, about losing my family, about the supervised visits and the divorce papers and the fact that my children were afraid of me. He was quiet for a long time after I finished. I raised better than this, he said finally. I know, mother and I, we had our problems. Every marriage does, but we worked through them. We talked to each other. We never ever looked outside our marriage for what we should have been building inside it. I don't know how to fix this. Can't fix this, David. Some things can't be fixed. Some mistakes are too big, too many people, destroy too much trust. All can do now is figure out how to live with what've done and try not to make it worse. What am I supposed to do? We're supposed to be the best father can be in the time they give. We're supposed to pay child support and alimony without complaining. We're supposed to respect the boundaries Sarah sets and never, ever make this harder on those kids than it already is. What about me? What about what I need? The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Son, gave the right to think about what need when decided what wanted was more important than what family needed. Those kids didn't ask for this. Sarah didn't ask for this. Did this, and now live with it. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've been sitting in this motel room, thinking about everything I've lost and everything I'll never get back. I think about Sarah alone in our house, trying to explain to bill collectors why she can't afford the mortgage payments anymore. Trying to find a full-time job while managing 2 traumatized kids, crying herself to sleep in our bed while I'm here feeling sorry for her. I think about Emma's nightmares and Mike's bedwetting, and the fact that they'll both grow in a broken home because their father couldn't keep his promises. I think about all the people I've disappointed. My parents, who raised me to be better than this. My kids, who looked to me like I was a hero. My wife who loved me completely and deserved so much better. I think about Lisa, and how easy it was to convince that what we had was real love instead of just mutual selfishness. How I let her make me feel like a victim in my own marriage instead of taking responsibility for my own unhappiness. I think about all the times Sarah tried to connect with me, tried to tell me what she needed, tried to save our marriage before I destroyed it, all the opportunities I had to choose my family over my ego, and how I failed every single time. The hardest part is knowing that this didn't happen to me. This isn't something that was done to me by fate or circumstances or other people's choices. I did this, every step of the way. I chose to lie, to cheat, to prioritize my own feelings over my family's well-being. I chose to leave Emma's birthday party. I chose to delete text messages and lie about where I was going. I chose to seek comfort from another woman instead of working on my marriage. I chose to betray the person who loved me most in the world. And now I'm choosing to sit in this motel room wallowing in self-pity instead of figuring out how to be the father my children deserve, even if I can't be their full-time dad anymore. Tomorrow I start looking for a new job, not because I want to rebuild but because I owe child support and alimony to the family I destroyed. I'll find an apartment, not because I want a new home, but because I can't live in this motel forever. I'll show to my supervised visits and be the best father I can be for 2 hours every other week. I'll pay my bills and follow the court orders and respect the boundaries Sarah sets, not because I'm a good person, but because it's the least I can do after taking away their stability. I'll live with the fact that my children will always know their father chose another woman over their mother. That they'll always wonder if they weren't good enough to keep their family together. That they'll grow with trust issues and abandonment fears because the man who was supposed to protect them was the one who them most. I'll live with the fact that Sarah, the most incredible woman I've ever known, will never look at me with love again. That she'll spend years rebuilding what I destroyed, finding her strength again, learning to trust someone new who will hopefully give her everything I failed to. This is my now. Not that I planned, not that I wanted, but that I earned through my choices. The worst part isn't losing them, though that feels like dying every single day. The worst part is knowing they're all better off without me. 6 months have passed since I destroyed my family. 6 months of supervised visits, cheap apartments, and learning what it means to live with consequences that never end. I found a job at a warehouse across town. It pays half what I used to make, but it's honest work and nobody there knows my story. I load trucks and keep my mouth shut and come home to an empty apartment that smells like loneliness. The supervised visits became routine. Every other Saturday, 2 hours in that sterile room, pretending everything was normal while a social worker documented whether I was stable enough to spend time with my own children. Emma would bring drawings from school. Mike would show me new toys. I'd help with homework and read stories and try to cram 2 weeks worth of fathering into 120 minutes. The kids adapted the way children do. They stopped asking when I was coming home. Emma stopped crying when visits ended. Mike stopped looking surprised to see me, like he'd finally accepted that this was how things were now. That should have felt like progress, but it felt like they were learning to live without me, and they were doing just fine. Sarah looked better every time I saw her at pickup and drop off. She'd lost the hollow look in her eyes, started wearing makeup again, smiled at the social worker when discussing the kids' progress. She was healing, moving on, building a that didn't include me. I heard through Michelle that Sarah had started working full-time at the marketing firm where she used to freelance. She was making good money, had excellent benefits, was even getting promoted. The house was staying in her name. She'd refinanced the mortgage, painted the living room, planted a garden with the kids. She was thriving without me. 3 months ago the supervised visits ended. The social worker recommended unsupervised time, and the court agreed. I was allowed to take Emma and Mike to my apartment every other weekend, Friday evening to Sunday afternoon. This is Daddy's new house, Sarah told them the first time she dropped them off. Her voice was neutral, matter of fact, no anger anymore, just acceptance of the reality we were all living in. My apartment was a 1-bedroom in a complex filled with other divorced dads and college students. I'd bought a pull-out couch for the kids to sleep on, decorated the walls with their artwork, stocked the fridge with their favorite foods. I was trying to build something that felt like home in a place that would never be more than the consolation prize of fatherhood. Emma was 8 now, old enough to understand more than I wish she did. She'd ask careful questions about why mommy and daddy couldn't live together anymore, why we had to have 2 houses, why she couldn't have both parents at her school place. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that can't be fixed. I'd tell her which was true but not the whole truth. The whole truth was that her daddy had made a choice to betray her mommy, and some betrayals are too big to survive. Mike was 5, still young enough to accept the situation without understanding it. He liked having 2 bedrooms, 2 sets of toys, 2 different bedtime routines. For him, this was just how families work now. But I could see the effects anyway. The way Emma watched other intact families at the park with longing. The way Mike got anxious when either parent left his sight, like he was afraid they might disappear too. The way both kids had learned to navigate between 2 different worlds that would never connect again. I tried to be the best weekend father I could be. I took them to movies, parks, museums. I helped with homework and cooked their favorite meals and read bedtime stories with all the voices they remembered. I loved them fiercely and completely, and it was nowhere near enough to undo the damage I'd caused. The hardest moments were when they'd mention things from their other. Emma's soccer games that I wasn't invited to. Mike's preschool graduation that I watched from the back row. Sarah's new friend from work who'd started coming to family barbecues and helped with school projects. Mr. James is really nice, Emma told me one Saturday morning while we made pancakes. He fixed our back fence and taught me how to throw a curveball. Mr. James. Sarah was dating someone. I knew it was inevitable. Sarah was young, beautiful, kind, everything any man would want in a partner. She deserved to find love again, deserved someone who would appreciate what they had instead of throwing it away for momentary validation. But knowing it and living with it were different things. That's great, sweetheart. I'm glad he's nice to them, makes mommy laugh again. Mike added, not understanding that he was twisting in my chest. She's happy now. She's happy now. Past tense implied she hadn't been before. Because of me. Because I'd made her miserable for years before I finally destroyed everything completely. That night, after I'd put the kids to bed on the pull-out couch, I sat in my kitchen and cried for the first time since the motel room. Not because Sarah was dating someone else, but because my children were describing their mother being happy as something new and noteworthy. How long had Sarah been unhappy in our marriage? How many years had she been putting on a brave face while I worked too and checked out emotionally? How many nights had she gone to bed feeling unloved and unappreciated while I told I was sacrificing for the family? I thought about that last dinner she'd planned, when she'd worn a new dress and made reservations and tried one more time to connect with me. How I dismissed her attempts as dramatic, been distracted by Lisa's texts, missed the desperation in her eyes. She'd been drowning in our marriage, and I'd been too self-absorbed to notice. Then I'd cheated on her and acted like I was the victim when she couldn't appreciate my sacrifices. 2 weeks later, I saw them together at Emma's school spring concert. Sarah was sitting in the 3rd row with a man I didn't recognize, tall, kind-faced, wearing a button-down shirt and khakis like he belonged at elementary school events. Mr. James, I assumed. Emma spotted me in the back and waved enthusiastically. Sarah turned to see who she was waving at, and our eyes met for the first time in months. She didn't look angry or anymore, just politely neutral, the way I'd look at any other parent at child's school event. I watched Mr. James lean over to whisper something that made Sarah smile, saw him hand her tissues when Emma's class sang that song about family that made all the parents emotional. I watched him applaud enthusiastically when Emma played her recorder solo, like he was genuinely proud of her performance. This man was doing all the things I should have been doing, being present, being supportive, being the kind of partner who made Sarah feel loved instead of taken for granted. After the concert, Emma ran over to me with her program. Did see me, Daddy. Did hear my solo. We're amazing, sweetheart. I'm so proud of Bob. Mester. James said I was the best recorder player in the whole school. She said, beaming. He brought flowers for mommy and a special certificate for me that he made on his computer. I looked over at Sarah and Mr. James, who were talking to Emma's music teacher. He had his hand on the small of Sarah's back, and she was leaning into him slightly, unconsciously, the way she used to lean into me when we were happy. That's wonderful, Emma. I'm glad Mr. James was here to celebrate with. And I meant it. As much as it destroyed me to watch another man take my place in their lives, I was grateful that Sarah had found someone who showed. Someone who made certificates for my daughter's achievements and brought flowers to school concerts and made my wife smile again. Emma hugged me goodbye and ran back to them. I watched the 3 of them walk to the parking lot together, looking like the family I'd thrown away. Sarah's hand in Mr. James's, Emma skipping between them, all of them laughing about something I couldn't hear. I sat in my car until the parking lot was empty, trying to process what I just witnessed. My replacement, the man who was raising my children and loving my wife the way I should have all along. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. I signed the papers in a lawyer's office that smelled like coffee and broken promises. Sarah wasn't there. She'd signed earlier, eager to be done with the legal ties that bound her to someone who'd betrayed her so completely. I was officially a divorced father, paying child support and alimony, entitled to every other weekend and alternating holidays. The math of a broken family, divided by lawyers and judges who didn't know that Emma liked extra marshmallows in her hot chocolate or that Mike still needed his nightlight to sleep. That weekend was my regular time with the kids. We went to the zoo and Emma held my hand while we looked at the elephants. Daddy, are okay? Seem sad. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking. About what? About how I'd had everything I could ever want and away for nothing. About how mother is rebuilding her while I'm stuck in the wreckage of my choices. About how and Mike are growing in a broken home because father couldn't appreciate what he had, just grown stuff. Nothing for to worry about. She squeezed my hand. I love Daddy. I love too, Emma, more than I'll ever know. That night, after I dropped them back at the house that used to be ours, I drove around town for hours. Past the park where we used to have family picnics. Past the ice cream shop where we'd celebrate good report cards. Past the church where Sarah and I had promised to love each other for better or worse, in sickness and health, forsaking all others. I'd broken every promise I'd made to her. I'd chosen worse when we needed better, selfishness when she needed health, someone else when I'd sworn to forsake all others. The worst part wasn't losing her, though that felt like losing half my soul. The worst part wasn't seeing another man take my place, though that was its own special kind of. The worst part wasn't living alone in a cheap apartment, missing my children every day, knowing I'd destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. The worst part was knowing that everyone was better off without me. Sarah was happier, healthier, more confident than I'd seen her in years. The kids were adapting, thriving, learning that families could take different shapes and still be filled with love. James was giving them things I'd never been able to: presence, consistency, the security of knowing someone would show. I was the problem. I had always been the problem. Not Sarah's expectations, not work stress, not the pressures of marriage and parenthood. Me, my selfishness, my inability to appreciate what I had, my need for validation from outside sources instead of building something meaningful at home. Last month Emma called me on a Tuesday night, which was unusual since it wasn't my weekend. Daddy, I wanted to tell something. What's, sweetheart? Mr. James asked mommy to marry him, and she said yes. The words hit me like a physical, even though I'd been expecting them for months. That's wonderful, Emma. Are happy about it? Yeah, I really like him. He's gonna be my stepdad, but he said I can still call daddy cause you're my real dad and nothing will ever change that. I closed my eyes, grateful that this man understood the importance of not trying to replace me in my children's hearts, even if he'd already replaced me in their daily lives. He's right, sweetheart. I'll always be daddy, no matter what. Sad. The question came from nowhere, and I realized my 8-year-old daughter was trying to take care of my feelings about her mother's engagement. I'm happy that mommy found someone who makes her smile. And I'm happy that and Mike like him. That's all that matters. I could come to the wedding, she said quietly. I could too, baby, but this is mommy's special day, and it should be perfect for her. After I hung, I sat in my apartment thinking about the wedding I wouldn't attend. Sarah in a white dress, maybe the same one she'd worn when she married me, or maybe a new one that represented her fresh start. Emma as the flower girl, Mike as the ring bearer. All of them becoming a new family unit while I watched from the sidelines of the I destroyed. I thought about Mr. James promising to love, honor, and cherish the woman I'd failed to appreciate, promising to forsake all others when I'd proven that promise meant nothing to me. Taking vows that he'd probably keep because he understood what I never did, that love is a choice make every day, not a feeling that comes and goes. Sarah deserved a man who would choose her every single day. Who would work on their marriage instead of working away from it. Who would see her attempts to connect as precious gifts instead of dramatic demands for attention. My children deserved a stepfather who would show to every school event, remember their friends' names, help with homework without being asked. Who would make their mother happy instead of taking her happiness for granted. They were getting everything I should have given them, from a man who was better than me in every way that mattered. The wedding was 3 weeks ago. I knew because the kids mentioned it when I picked them the following weekend. Emma showed me pictures on Sarah's phone, the whole family dressed, laughing, looking like they belonged together. It was the most beautiful wedding ever, Emma told me. Mommy looked like a princess, and Mr. James cried when she walked down the aisle. He cried. Because he understood what a gift it was to have Sarah choose him, to trust him with her heart after someone else had broken it so completely. I'm glad it was beautiful, sweetheart. They're going on a honeymoon to the beach, and we get to stay with Grandma Michelle. When and Mommy got married, did go on a honeymoon too. We did. We went to the mountains. I didn't tell her that we'd been so young and broke that we'd stayed in a cabin that leaked when it rained, or that we'd spent the whole week planning our future together, the house we'd buy, the children we'd have, that we'd build side by side. I didn't tell her that it had been the happiest week of my back when I still believed in forever, and thought I was incapable of destroying something so precious. Now Sarah was on her second honeymoon, with a man who'd proven himself worthy of her trust. They were probably making plans too, maybe more children, maybe traveling, maybe just growing old together the way Sarah and I were supposed to. I dropped the kids off Sunday evening and watched them run into their house, Sarah's house now, shared with her new husband. My old rewritten with someone better in the leading role. Tonight I'm sitting in this apartment, looking at the wedding photos Emma insisted on showing me, trying to understand how I became the villain in my own love story. I see Sarah's face in those pictures, radiant, confident, genuinely happy in a way I don't remember her being with me, not even at our own wedding. I see Mr. James looking at her like she's the answer to every prayer he's ever prayed. I see Emma and Mike dressed and beaming, part of something stable and beautiful and whole. I see the family I could have had if I'd been a different kind of man. If I'd fought for my marriage instead of running from it. If I'd chosen gratitude over entitlement, presence over escape, faithfulness over the cheap thrill of being wanted by someone new. But I wasn't that man. I was the man who worked late to avoid family dinners, who left birthday parties for other women's crises, who chose momentary validation over a lifetime of love. I was the man who hid everything and it away because I convinced I deserved more. Sarah doesn't deserve more. She deserves everything: loyalty, presence, appreciation, faithfulness, the kind of love that chooses her every single day. And now she has it, with someone who understands what I never did. My children don't deserve the broken home I gave them, but they're getting something better in return. A stepfather who shows, a mother who's happy, a family unit built on respect and commitment instead of resentment and neglect. Everyone got what they deserved except me. I deserved to lose them. I deserved to watch from the sidelines while another man loved my family better than I ever did. I deserved to live with the knowledge that my selfishness had consequences that would ripple through generations. That Emma and Mike would grow with trust issues. That they'd always know their father was capable of ultimate betrayal. That they'd question whether love could really last forever, because the first man they ever loved had taught them it couldn't. I deserved all of it. The hardest part isn't the loneliness. Though these walls close in on me every night. It isn't the regret, though it sits in my chest like a stone that never dissolves. It isn't even watching another man live the I away, though that burns in ways I didn't know were possible. The hardest part is knowing that if I could go back and do it all over again, I'd probably make the same mistakes. Because the problems weren't just my actions, they were who I was at my core. Selfish, entitled, unable to appreciate what I had until I'd already lost it. Some people are capable of the kind of love that lasts forever. Some people can make the choice to be faithful, present, grateful every single day for decades. I'm not one of those people. And now my children will spend their lives knowing that the first man who was supposed to love them unconditionally was someone who loved himself more. That's the legacy I've left them. That's the truth they'll carry into every relationship they ever have. That's the gift I gave them in exchange for a few months of feeling special with someone who didn't matter. I traded my family's security for my own ego, and now I get to live forever with the math of that transaction. I am worth nothing. And they are worth everything I'll never be able to give them again. Every other weekend for the rest of I'll get 48 hours to pretend I'm still their father in any way that matters. Every other weekend, I'll try to cram a lifetime of love into 2 days while they go home to the man who actually deserves to raise them. Every other weekend, I'll be reminded that some mistakes don't get fixed, they just get lived with forever, by everyone they've touched. The real tragedy isn't that I lost my family. The real tragedy is that I never deserved them in the first place, and it took destroying them to figure that out.